Welcome to The Victory Show.
Welcome to the Victory Show, where seven-figure founders, entrepreneurs, and executives reveal the real playbook behind scaling past that first million in recurring revenue. We go beyond the highlight reel into the hard lessons, costly mistakes, key growth inflection points, and the human decisions that shaped those numbers. And here's the twist. Every conversation we have becomes a chapter in our Victory book series. So the next generation of builders don't have to start from scratch or make the mistakes of others. You can learn through vicarious. Okay, I'm gonna start that over. I totally messed up. I have a new intro. All right, here we go again.
No worries.
Welcome to the Victory Show, where seven-figure founders, entrepreneurs, and executives reveal the real playbook behind scaling past that first million in recurring revenue. We go beyond the highlight reel into the hard lessons, costly mistakes, key growth inflection points, and the human decisions that shape the numbers. Here's the twist. Every conversation becomes a chapter in the Victory book series, so the next generation of builders doesn't have to start from scratch. Today, I'm sitting down with Amber Nigam, who is leading the charge to fix one of healthcare's most broken systems, administration, using the power of cutting-edge AI. Amber is the co-founder and CEO of Basis.ai, a healthcare technology company pioneering agentic AI to reduce administrative burden and unlock efficiency for payers, providers, and patients alike. Amber was named among the top 50 in digital health by Rock Health and received the Boston Business Journal 40 Under 40 Leadership Award. His company has been recognized as an award-winning startup in Gartner's healthcare AI landscape and is helping define what scalable real-world AI looks like inside the complexity of our modern healthcare system. He holds a graduate degree from Harvard, has taught at MIT, and contributes thought leadership through Harvard Business Review and Forbes, making him one of the rare founders who move seamlessly between innovation, execution, and academia. Amber, thank you so much for being here.
Of
Boy,
course.
if there was a single problem to tackle, you guys sure chose a good one.
First of all, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be a part of your show and to be given an opportunity to share some of my learnings. I think I have had a great experience learning from the mistakes of others so that I don't make the same mistakes. But yeah, excited for sharing anything and everything that I've learned. And to answer any question that you might have for me.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about your background first. So you went to Harvard. What was your course of study when you went through?
Yeah, so even before going to Harvard, I had an undergrad degree in computer science. I was fairly interested in mathematics, and I wanted to, at some point in time, do a PhD, which I ended up not doing, by the way. So
You mean be running or founding a couple of companies sucked up all your brain space?
I mean, I love founding. I love working on my own company and my startups and so on and so forth. I think my parents have a different perspective. They would have had me do a couple of PhDs. But
Isn't that the way it always is, though?
I know, but I feel overall, I've had a great experience. When I was at Harvard, I studied health data science. So it's a degree, it's an MS degree at the intersection of healthcare and data science.
Wow.
And that was just amazing. You get to work with really smart physicians, clinicians. Harvard, by the way, has affiliated hospitals, health systems, like Mass General, Brigham. There is Beth Israel, Deaconess Leahy. And then Harvard also has like good, I feel, people who are very aware of AI. Harvard is almost neighboring MIT, and there are a couple of good, decent, I think, professors in AI there as well, along with data scientists. So I think I had a really good experience. First of all, understanding from the subject matter experts, the doctors, how to understand healthcare, how do they think about triaging or let's say care for patients and so on and so forth. But even at a higher level, how do they think about AI? Are they AI averse? I was very pleasantly surprised to see how doctors and clinicians, they were really interested in understanding more about AI. Unlike my previous experience, I saw how doctors were very proficient. They knew about what they were talking about, what the latest technologies they can use in their own framework, and so on and so forth. So, long story short, I had a great time at Harvard. I learned a ton, and I think it set the path for me founding companies, not just from the perspective of learning from these smart people, but also from the perspective of hiring these smart people, which I did, by
Oh,
the way.
oh, that's fantastic. So when was it in your educational journey that you had the kind of realization of like, oh, I'm not going to go get a PhD. I need to start a company.
I would just say it was right when I was thinking about either applying, whether I should apply for a PhD or I should go for a startup. And I spoke with a bunch of founders. I spoke with a few professors. And while I loved the technology, the rigor the professors brought, it also meant that I have to, let's say, stay within the confines
Yeah.
of academia for the next 5 to 7 years versus starting something of my own and having that autonomy. And while I do decently when I'm working with smart people around me, but if I'm told exactly what to do, I don't find that very exciting. So I think
Mm,
it was then after speaking with a few founders, a few professors, I decided that I wanted to found a company now.
wow. And so what did you choose for your first go through?
It was again an AI-based company, and we ended up selling to a company which ultimately got sold to Goldman Sachs. And it was a lot of number crunching. It was a lot
Oh,
of, I would
wow.
say, mathematics. So it was very close to my heart, but not as close as healthcare, which is my current venture.
So with that first company, like what how long were you running it before you got acquired?
We ran it for 3 years.
Okay.
And right after my co-founder and I decided that we um, have a decent offer, we can sell this company and go do certain other things. That's how we kind of moved on.
So let's talk about company number one. What was that first year like for you guys? And you know, as you got into year two and three, what were some of the mistakes that you look back on and went, oh yeah, we probably shouldn't have done
I think company one had so many mistakes, and
that?
the first mistake began from uh, like choosing the right team.
Mm,
And we felt even if we did not have the best team, maybe we can compromise by saying if someone is being helpful right now, but they're playing politics, um, until the time you figure out a replacement, you just deal with it. Um, I think that's such a slippery slope. You can never undo the things that are damaged, not just from the perspective of people around you, the morale that overall goes down, but even in your own leadership, the trust gets diminished and so on and so forth.
mm.
So I feel that was one of the biggest mistakes that I learned, and it was not my first mistake or the last mistake. There were other mistakes as well, but
That
I
that
think
was a big one. What are
yeah.
some examples of people that you had they were doing an okay job, but they were like, what do you mean when you say they're playing politics? Like people that were trying to like angle to get more control in the company or just wanted a raise or yes to all.
I would say a combination, but most critically saying something like, "Oh, I know Amber, or I was the CEO, and I've already spoken with him, by the way, and they were doing this without even me knowing that they are doing this, and they had not spoken with me. They had not asked me, but they were using that soft, I would say, power to tell others that, oh, you need to do this, and you need to do this right now, and there is that uh, like false sense of urgency all the time because of them doing certain things.
Mm.
But yeah, that was my experience.
So when did you know you had a viable company that you could get acquired? Did you purposely, like at the end of year two, go, okay, I've learned the lessons on this one. This was sort of the starter company and it was built specifically to just grow and exit. Or did you hit year two and go, man, this I thought I wanted to do this thing. Now we're in it. It's not so enjoyable. Like let's start shopping it and see if anybody's interested.
So you never know if your company can be acquired that early,
Yeah.
um, unless you have an offer. That's what I would say. While we knew we had a great product, while we knew we had good customers, we understood they were feeling happy about it. We had a great team of data scientists, subject matter expert, and I think they worked really well, so on and so forth. Uh, but a company reached out to us, and that's when we thought, oh,
Wow.
wow, people are actually interested in buying a company for more than $1. So that's when it all became real. And while we felt this is a good idea, we also knew we had hit a certain glass ceiling.
Mm,
And the kind of offer we had gotten back then, it felt like that could be a reasonable exit for us. And it could also mean us doing something else, which is more scalable.
yeah.
Um,
So did the idea and the concept for Basis, was that created while you were growing company number one, or did you exit and then kind of just take some time off for a bit and then something caught your eye and you got the idea and we're off to the races?
Yeah, I would say the idea of Basis came about after I left the company, after it was acquired, my first company. And even before I uh, started working on Basis, I think I was always interested in healthcare. My dad had diabetes and certain
Mm,
comorbidities and so on and so forth. And being his caregiver, I did see a lot of gaps in care, but
uh,
of course, at that point in time, I was not aware of all the operational complexity that comes with healthcare. And I felt this is just too slow. But when I started thinking about what specific ideas I can work on, it was then that I figured out okay, prior authorization, utilization management, all the domains where you define how different surgeries or medications are reimbursed. The operational processes are the real bottlenecks. That's when I was like, yes, I need to work on this problem now. Now I know the
mm.
problem I need to tackle.
Now, did you discover the operational complexity just through your dad's healthcare, or did you then turn to your data science and start just kind of crunching the numbers, and that's when it was sort of glaring of like, oh man, like there's this problem right here.
I would say it was the combination of both understanding from my caregiving experience for my dad, understanding from crunching the numbers, doing the, I would say, landscape analysis, or even when I was at Harvard, I spoke with a lot of doctors. I spoke with a lot of, I would say, payer administrators, health plan administrators,
Mm,
and they told me their biggest bottlenecks and where they spend most time. The moment I heard that, I felt it was a large enough problem, even though there was no, um, that was not a mystery to me. I did crunch certain numbers because I'm a creature of habit, and I needed to make sure I had dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. I had my matrices prepared for raising around, making sure we have the good spiel. But this problem was glaringly obvious, I would say.
mm. So I want to just talk about from the doctor experience a little bit because it's pretty easy for, us as consumers to kind of look at the healthcare industry and be disgruntled with it and thinking, oh, the big evil corporations. But I don't think people always stop and talk, what are the boots on the ground experience for the nurses and doctors, and what is the thing that really frustrates them about our healthcare system?
Yeah, I feel to your point that is so true. And especially as we think about to your first point, that providers, the doctors, and the nurses, they spend a ton of time working on the paperwork when
Mm,
much of this task would be done by, let's say, a semi-automated system, if not fully automated system. That's point number one. Point number two, that you also rightfully mentioned, it's not even about good actors versus bad actors. I think in healthcare, a lot of us are mission oriented. So even for instance, when there are insurance companies, they're trying to streamline a certain process. The intention is always to reduce the time that doctors and nurses typically spend in doing those operations, and maybe using an automated system, semi-automated system in the process. So I feel as long as we have the North Star, which is patient outcomes or member outcomes, and then we are taking a couple of steps back to understand how will we address this problem, and at the same time we'll still follow the same North Star. I think we'll be at a better space as compared to where we are. The other problem in healthcare, even though you did not ask this question, I'll still give like a freebie response, is misaligned incentives. There's so many different stakeholders involved in healthcare, like there are providers, doctors, health systems, nurses. Then you have insurance companies, the administrators. And then you have pharma companies that work on drugs. And then finally, you have regulators or auditors like CMS. And unless you have some sort of alignment, which is very difficult to achieve because all these companies work in their own silos typically. So while health systems are doing a great job in working for the patients, you need to still manage the cost. You cannot be saying, you know what, for whatever cost you'll ask, we'll just approve everything. And while insurance companies are doing a great job in managing cost, we also need to monitor or evaluate how much they are denying certain requests. And similarly, on a similar basis, while pharma companies do an amazing job in researching about drugs, coming up with different pipelines of drugs and so on and so forth, there has to be a glass ceiling for how many dollars you can spend, because we are living in, fortunately or unfortunately, in a world that has limited constrained resources. So it's a multi-constrained problem.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you got in and started working with what you were doing with Basis, like, do you have any data that shows like the current operational model for most hospitals? When was that developed and created? And because again, as a user, it feels like we're doing stuff that like from the 60s, like everything's still paper, everything's still, and I think about when I was going to the doctor as a kid, a doctor now, the experience hasn't changed in a lot of ways with like they got to fill out the paperwork every single time. So I always sometimes wonder, like, is part of the culture of the current healthcare system like stuck in old systems just because that's the way we do it?
I would actually say yes, this is correct. And I would also say healthcare is one of those domains where people feel very comfortable with the way they have been used to, as compared to many other domains. And I think it's difficult. It's difficult to innovate anything in healthcare. It's difficult to come up with innovative ideas that are quickly adopted and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I would also say healthcare is so critical that sometimes even the smallest of mistake can take someone's life. So I would not just blame this on the administrators, the people who are actually operating. I think we're all doing our best to help patients, to help members. Healthcare is just too complex. Having said that, I would still say there are certain incumbents, there are certain organizations that are not doing a great job in letting others innovate. So when you have certain organizations like these, or when you have misaligned incentives, I will actually not even point fingers at any particular organization, but when you do not have aligned incentives, you probably need a transparent, neutral party to help align these incentives. And there are two ways to do this. One is at a high level, you have an authority like the government or CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, them doing certain things. On the other side, you have organizations that are more innovative. They can move fast and they can use technology to ease out certain burdens. So we chose, of course, the smaller part. We are a small company, we are trying to innovate certain operational processes like utilization management, prior authorization, risk adjustment. And these are not buzzwords, these are just the processes that exist. And we use certain technologies like generative AI. We have our own machine learning, data science models. We also use agentic AI to streamline certain processes, but it's not smoke and mirrors per se, especially as you think about how you create these algorithms and how you use subject matter expertise, how you involve clinicians, how you involve data scientists, make data scientists work with clinicians, and so on and so forth. So it's more complex than I would say many other domains. But it's also very exciting. One, because it's a difficult problem to solve. It's not easy. And second, there's so many bottlenecks that you face that if you're not very interested in the mission, I think you'll just give up.
Mm. Were you surprised at the resistance you guys faced from some of the organizations that you said their incentives weren't aligned? Because I'm assuming, again, without pointing figures, right? I'm sure there's some organizations that profit massively off of the current way of doing things. So coming in and, what's the word I'm looking for? Upgrading, let's just use that word, evolving the system could be for them could be an existential threat.
I would just say while we were maybe slightly surprised, but we knew what we were getting ourselves into. At the same time, I think we got massive support from certain organizations, like the largest healthcare company in the world, Eli Lilly, which is a pharma company. They are also our investors.
Wow.
The largest health system in the US, but probably the best health system in the world, Mayo Clinic, they are our investors as well.
Wow.
And then insurance companies, like one of the largest insurance companies is like Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, Care First investors. Care First is one of the Blues. They invested in us as well. So we ended up getting a lot of support from all these varying, I would say, different stakeholders of healthcare. And now we were chosen as the top 10 finalist in a chili cook-off challenge by CMS. So I think that kind of adds the spice. But I think we were
fantastic.
we were fortunate to have received support from such amazing organizations that it reduced, I would say, the bottlenecks for us. But I don't think many organizations are as lucky as us. So I would just say I just lucked out.
Well, and that's a big part of this too. I mean, that's in all business. I think there's a certain degree of luck. So walk us through what's the old, I guess the old / current operational framework for a hospital, and then walk us through how that gets changed by implementing what Basis is trying to do.
Yeah. So let's assume a scenario where Basis is not into the picture. So it's a pre-Basis scenario and there'll be a post-Basis scenario. So in a pre-Basis scenario, providers will have to submit all the information, picking it up from either electronic medical records. If they do not have electronic medical records, they'll have to actually write everything down and submit it to the payers. So that's how the whole problem starts. Typically, it will take per patient, per case, a couple of hours, or maybe like 1 hour per patient. Per patient. And same thing happens on the payer side, the insurance company side, where they will take 40, 45 minutes just to understand a particular patient, a particular case, use their policies, try to remember all those policies. If they do not, then read those 100-pager policies, read now the 100-pager information that they have received for each and every patient, and then decide whether they can approve or not approve. And by the way, if this approval or denial was typically denials are challenged, approvals are never challenged. But if let's say they deny someone something and they are provided with additional context, so imagine all the work that was done. It's repeated, and given that you have no context of this request coming in, you're practically spending hours and hours on something that could have been approved or auto-approved by using a platform like Basis. So once you have
I was gonna say again, as a user, like especially these last few years, it's been extremely frustrating for me as a patient to go, how is it like even in my same network, if I'm seeing my doctor refers me to somebody in the same building and I go see that guy, I've got to fill out all the same paperwork and I just look at it going like in today's data age, like can't we as patients have like one central this is the Travis Cody Health Hub. I've got my health ID number that a doctor just logs in so I like so that everybody can access it anytime. Because right now it's so it feels again, it feels tribal. Like, oh, Anthem, if I'm in the Anthem hospital, my records are only there, but if I go over to a different the Southwestern hospital, they've got my records and they're like, no, these are ours. These are our you can't have access to these. So I end up if I am getting referred to different people, I've got my records in five different places and everybody's like, these are ours. You can't have them. So so that's I just it's interesting to me that we're especially in this day and age that is still kind of how we're doing stuff. Okay, so you've given us sort of the pre-basis.
Yeah,
Is there more to that, or is that like
I would say there's so much more to that, but this call would be not enough to go over that. But at the same time, I would just summarize the post basis thing, which is pretty simple. Post basis is about when providers, the doctors submit the paperwork, they know exactly what is required. Sometimes basis can help them figure out the right information in their own medical records. But more crucially, when we work on the payer side or the insurance side, we already have ingested all the policies, so we know what we're looking for. So instead of waiting for like 5 days, 7 days, and having all the bottlenecks of limited nursing staff to define whether this could be approved or not approved, most of the approvals are auto approvals. So you
within
practically
like minutes?
spend, yeah, within minutes. And even in cases where, let's say, it takes a bit of time because not every scenario is black and white, there will be ambiguities and so on and so forth, we still enable the clinicians to take a call faster. So instead of spending something like 4 or 5 hours, maybe like if I talk about one case, instead of spending, let's say, 50 minutes or 1 hour, they'll be spending close to 2 to 3 minutes. And when you scale it up across millions of cases, you are
Wow.
practically saving them billions of minutes and
That is
seconds.
insane just by just that one fixing that one bottleneck.
Yeah.
So what has been some of the improvement that you've seen in like, the hospitals that are implementing basis right now? Or are you seeing a real world like, savings of like thousands of hours of manpower per week just because you're removing I guess the human sort of busyness element of it?
I would say so. I would say it does start with uh, efficiency, making sure everyone is doing work which is at the top of their license and so on and so forth. But at the same time, what we are also seeing is our decision making has become more objective. So when, let's say, there were human reviewers involved and there were differences, what we try to do is we try to learn from the differences between, let's say, the machine and the human, or
Mm,
the human and the human, and we
yeah,
try to work on that. So I think we are seeing a lot of improvement from the algorithmic standpoint. What we are also seeing is there has been, I think, a big focus on when we go from one population type to another population type, how do we account for different nuances, which sometimes might be missed. So we are focusing on that as well. And the last part I would say is just the accuracy piece of things. As we consume more information, as we ingest more data, the accuracy improves over a period of time as well. So we are now starting to see that improvement, and we have reasons to believe that this will only improve. Having said that, I would also caution against overuse of AI or overuse of
sure.
automation. So we, for instance, get grounded by um, establishing a standard at the intersection of clinical understanding and data science. So I feel that cannot be compromised. That is
Sure.
extremely critical.
Yeah, one of my mentors one time, he said he used AI AI in his business, and somebody's like, "Oh my God," and he's like, "No, I use augmented intelligence." So it's
That's
it's
spot
it's
on.
some
Yeah,
artificial tools, but
yeah.
everything was always like spot checked by a human. And I thought that to me was like that felt like that, yeah, that seems like a reasonable way to go about it, right? So
Absolutely. One of my mentors at MIT, by the way, calls AI as artificial and ignorant. He's, of
well,
course, a
based on some of the outputs, if you're using the tool wrong, it certainly feels that way.
oh yeah,
Um,
and he's like a clinician and a research data scientist, so he knows a thing or two.
so how old is Basis now? How long have you guys been operating?
It's been 3 years now.
So 3 years. That's a good number. And in that period of time, oh, my co-host is coming in to get on the action. She's like, "What's going on?
Oh wow, hi co-host.
Why are you paying attention to someone else?" What so walk us through the first couple of years of growth for Basis. Like what did that first year look like and especially in the first 12 months, what was sort of the biggest challenge you guys were, facing?
Yeah, I would say the first couple of years were quite exciting from the perspective of there was always some sort of new learning, and we were meeting very interesting people. People were also excited to meet us, and I would say, given that we were a young startup and there was a lot of energy around us, and the largest healthcare company investing in you and the best health system and so on and so forth.
Well, and
Um,
you were also kind of launching like when AI was starting to hit peak frenzy, where
exactly.
everybody's like, "Oh my God." When I say peak frenzy, when you had normal people on the street talking about AI, right? You probably
Yeah.
had been following it for years, but so
I would,
yeah. So again,
yeah.
timing, right? Of like, oh my God.
Timing, yeah,
Yeah.
timing was definitely one thing, and I think we got a bunch of publications like by Harvard Business School, for instance, Harvard Business Review, Stat News, and Forbes, and so on and so forth. So
Wow.
I think we had a ton of great learning, but I think overall, whatever we did in the first 1 year, I would say, set the tone for the next or subsequent years. One, because we were not overawed by the kind of eyeballs we are getting. We knew this will happen. We also knew that we need to be grounded
Mm.
in actually building a strong team. And to your point, this came from my first company's experience. While things are great, you don't elevate yourself to a level that when you fall, it's a steep fall. But
Mm.
when things are kind of down and
You
there's
mean
a
some
lull period,
founders buy into their own hype?
absolutely. And in a similar way, like when things are bad, they'll not stay bad for a long run, because if you're building something fundamentally strong, um, maybe like maintain a sweet average for yourself, or maybe
Mm.
like above average, I would say, but never buy into too much of hype or too much downtime. So that's what we did in the first couple of years. Um, at the same time, I would also say there were a bunch of learnings of who to hire, um, what not to say to clients, and sometimes while you might have the best intention, they're judging you on each and every sentence you're speaking, each and every word you're saying. So when I used to go to a business development call, I used to keep account of how many extra sentences I said
Wow.
in the first year.
I mean, do
But
you have a background in data science or what?
I know, right? And over a period of time, given that I was leading business development, I realized I should be speaking extra sentences, but then they should be lighthearted.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, so that's how I kind of
So when you
grew
launched
into.
Basis, what was your like how big how many employees did you have when you launched and then what had you scaled that to by the end of month 12?
Yeah, I would just say we have been extremely mindful of how much we burn, what our margins are. So we have stayed lean. And when we started the company, we were two people. We raised around, I would say, pre-product. And by the time we were 1 year old, we were five team members.
So you
So
doubled your first year?
exactly. Very high growth, 250%.
And what are you guys at now, employee wise?
Yeah, we are 50 member team right now, but we also have contractors.
Sure.
So if we have to scale, we can scale to a number like 50 to 60 within like 1 month. So that's the kind
If
of
you needed to.
yeah, if we needed to. But given we bet big on AI and making sure we are efficient in our processes, and of course doing it in a thoughtful and responsible way, we don't need too many people. We typically work with service companies who typically have hundreds, if not thousands, of employees.
Wow.
They are the ones who serve as the right service arm for
So
us.
is that a secret to staying lean? Like you have your core employees kind of low, and then you find bigger companies you can contract with to fulfill some of the stuff that might be, you know, busy work, I guess, or and secondary follow-up question is that something you've seen some startups, the mistake they make is they hire too fast instead of outsourcing stuff when they can.
I
I
would
shouldn't
say
say
so.
outsourcing,
Yeah,
contracting, right? Yeah.
I would say so. It's about either hiring too fast or raising a bunch of capital without becoming or trying to even become cash flow positive. And not to say every company has to become cash flow positive, but there is a sense of uh, power you get when you are cash flow positive, especially as you're trying to scale and you're trying to find the product market fit. How do you do that? I think it's critical because then is when you see a lot of service companies approaching you as compared to you approaching your clients to be
Mm.
your partners because they see there is a smart, talented group of people who are working on a critical problem. And by the way, we have this problem as well, but we are too big to uh, correct that problem for our own self. So we'll find an outside company to improve it for us. And meanwhile, we are doing that, we'll also leverage their efficiency, how they're treated by the market. So
Mm.
there's that rubbing off effect that they get from working with us.
I love that, the concept of contracting efficiency. That is that's awesome. So you're at the end of year three. We've got a few years left for this decade. So based on the growth that you're having right now, like where do you hope Basis will be by 2030? What's your vision for where you would like the company to be?
I would say that we will be the top utilization management company for not just health plans or the insurers, but the combination of health plans and health systems and working towards patient outcomes. We will essentially be at a point where the moment you receive the paperwork, you're able to take a call at the point of care rather than waiting for a couple of weeks to a couple of days to a couple of, I don't know, sometimes months as well, especially when they are back and forth of communication.
Wow. Wow. And time frame wise, how much are you guys hoping to impact the current system in terms of the amount of man hours you're going to be saving?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say it in a very simplistic way that based on the amount of time we spend on operations, it's unsustainable. Even right now, everyone is working at 120% of their capacity, and still there is so much work to be done. I would just say in the next 3 to 4 years, that has to significantly come down. I would be ambitious and say by something like 50%.
Wow, that's amazing. So final question. Well, we have two final questions, but final serious question. How has AI worked like how have you built AI systems inside your own company?
I think one of the ways through which we have done it is by staying competitive um, against, of course, our competitors, but even within the company as well, and have a really good framework of defining incentives for the data scientists, making sure that they
Mm,
are excited about the opportunities. They see they're brought into certain business development conversations so that they feel their work that they are doing is actually having real world impact. And the second perspective has been to define certain guardrails, which are about appropriate and responsible use of data science, AI in health.
Wow, that's amazing. So if somebody's listening to this episode, and maybe my doctor's going to be listening or reading the chapter, and he's like, "We need this." Like, how does someone reach out and engage with Basis? How do they find you?
Yeah, so we have communications email, which is communications with an S at the end at basis.ai. But my own email as well, which is my first name at basis.ai, Amber at basis.ai. I'd be very excited and happy to answer any queries if they were to reach out to me.
Well, Amber, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for taking time out of your day. It's always a treat to talk to somebody who's not just running successful business, but you're also tackling, some pretty huge problems. And Godspeed in solving this. As a user, I want to experience a little more ease. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Travis. It was wonderful being here.
Take care. Take care.